What's up, guys? Chimp here with another quick market update. It's been a couple of days since I recorded my last one, and so I want to record a quick one here, going into the coming week. Just talk a little bit about what happened and sort of what my expectations are. So, Bitcoin obviously topped at 124. We came all the way down to 112. I mentioned this before that there was a possibility that we could pump back up and alts run and whatnot, and that's basically what's happened. Um, in terms of like being bearish, I didn't really think too much of it in terms of like, hey, if it happens or doesn't happen, like what are the odds? Because ultimately, I think like this is sort of the we're at the overture, whatever you want to call it, the climax of of what typically happens, which is the story. Like when you think about the market, like I really like to think about it in terms of like logically and in terms of a story. And the story has been that Bitcoin buyers have stopped buying Bitcoin, treasuries have stopped buying, ETFs have stopped buying, right? You can go and look at the ETF numbers. I'm just going to pull it up here for just a second and then we can ignore this for the rest of the video, right? ETFs are no longer buying. In fact, they've been outflowing. Like I mentioned, treasuries aren't buying. Sailor's cooked. Metaplanet's basically cooked. Pick your like David Bailey's obviously cooked, right? Like the guy's hiring a cobbler for 275K plus equity options. So look, this is what typically happens, right? The Bitcoin bid dries up, people like go into alts, right? People go and speculate into alts, and then sort of the whole thing comes crashing down. And the exact same thing happened in April and May of 2021. I don't know if people were trading back then, but actually, I'll show you two times it happened in the past. So once in 2021 and once in 2020. So Bitcoin ended up going to 65K topping. You had a big flush out, sort of back into support. And then you had this like rally where Bitcoin ended up going up, performed pretty well to, reclaim most of the dump and alts went parabolic, right? And this was sort of like the last hurrah, last like vestiges of the market, and then like everything sort of fell apart. Something very similar happened at the DeFi summer levels in summer of 2020, where Bitcoin goes up, it goes all the way to 125, kind of comes back down to support. It goes up, makes a lower high, alts go crazy, right? And then everything sort of dumps out. And that's sort of my base case here. I think odds are good that we topped, right? Like this might have even been the top. I think the Jackson Hole thing sort of gave people another reason to be speculative. They aped for a few hours and like there's no bit to follow through. Is there a chance we get like one more push up here to 120? I guess it's possible. I'm not going to deny it. I think the odds of us pushing to a new high are pretty low. That would surprise me at this point. Like again, we're like $10,000 below it. Um, and ultimately, I think we've tapped this 112 level twice. I think the third try is probably going to break, and people are getting like I don't want to say like baited in, but in some ways they are, right? Like this is how it works. And I've talked about this before. At tops, bulls have a lot of money, and so getting some random vicious pump or getting a pump that lasts a week or even 2 weeks is not that surprising. Like bulls have a lot of money, right? Just like at the bottom when bears had all the money, right? You get like a pump from 115.5 to 118.5, and like bears can suppress it and hold it there for like a month, right? Like in that case, it's slightly under a month. I think it's basically the same story here, right? Like bulls pump it, like we get some chop. Bulls have been buying the dip. Like I think at some point it's gonna break, and there's a lot of liquidation sitting below, which I'll go over in just a second. Something to support my point, which I think is a harbinger of death in this market and for the next coming year or two. So last cycle, ETH sort of became like the harbinger of death, right? Every time ETH BTC would pump, that would sort of be like, okay, like the market's just cooked. I think this time around, that's Sol, right? You have all these like Solana grifts, everyone building garbage on Solana. Basically, Solana has turned into the ETH of 4 years ago, right? Like everyone was doing NFTs and all this random ass grift on ETH. Now they've been doing it on Solana. And so I think Solana pumping is like a big canary in the coal mine, not just for now, but 3 months from now, 6 months from now. You see a big rally in Solana. Like let's say Sol goes to, I'm just going to pull numbers out of my hat. I don't know if this is going to happen or not. Let's say Sol goes to $60. Maybe it never goes to $60. I don't know. And then it pumps to 120 in like the course of a week. That's probably your sign like, hey, shit's overheated. Like, be careful. Now, I don't know if it's gonna happen. I'm just saying like something that I would look for. And I want to show like every time Sol's pumped basically over 200, it's been like a harbinger of death, right? Once July 22nd, 23rd, once on August 14th, and again obviously now. And let's look at Bitcoin at those times, right? July 23rd or whatever, it's around 120. We got to dump back down to 112. Obviously August 13th, it was like around, Bitcoin is at the highs. And now look, like Solana's making a new high while Bitcoin's struggling. Like, this is not what you want to see if you're bullish. This is just, it isn't, right? And now let's look at leverage in the market. Global open interest, 108 billion, right? At the highs, it was at 114. Bitcoin's trading like 10% off the highs, and global OI is just sitting like sky high. Now, a lot of this does have to do with ETH, right? A lot of this does have to do with something like Sol, but it's still sky high. And relative to, again, when we hit 123, global open interest was at 90 billion. Relative to where we were at 112, and it's gonna, I'm just telling you the numbers because it's loading. Right, it was at 88 billion. Now it's at 108. There's like, and where was global open interest before we pumped? 70, 71, 72 billion. Like, this market is super leveraged in my opinion, and again, like, bulls have money. Maybe they can hold this like 113 to 118 range, or maybe they can push it to 120. But I think like there's just too much leverage in the market. It's like transparent that there's not enough of a bid on Bitcoin, right? It's like super transparent, and like you see it from the treasury companies, you see it from the ETF, and so to my last point, I just want to show these liquidation heat maps. So again, like, people are worried, like, oh, are there shorts to liquidate? If you look on Hyperliquid, there's like one short to liquidate at 122. There's not really many people to liquidate until you go way higher. These are probably market makers. Look at the Bitcoin on the long side, right? Like, all the way from 112 to 104. Like, you just have thousands and thousands and thousands of like. The reason I'm looking at this is because I think this is like very retail skewed. And so I think this is what retail is doing on other exchanges. Plus minus some change to the distribution, obviously. Same thing, right? And you can look at altcoins, right? Even look at altcoins like Farcoin that have been beat down to hell, right? Like, so many long liquidations just waiting on the way down. So, look, we'll see what happens. I don't think this Jackson Hole pump changes anything. This was like not even a surprise to me. And I guess moving forward, what's my base case? We could chop. Maybe we could have one more push up, but I think ultimately we're going to bleed down, and I don't think 112 will hold. So anyways, guys, appreciate it, and until next time, take care.